the sound of the whistle, the past comes alive in Rollag, Minnesota. It's the Western Minnesota Steam Threshers Reunion 1994, a Labor Day weekend celebration where thousands of people of all ages enjoy a taste of life from the turn of the century. It was a humble beginning for the Steam Threshers Reunion in Rollag, Minnesota. Over dinner one night during the early 1950s, Norman and William Nelson talked about thrashing grain the old-fashioned way. They pulled out this Gar-Scott steam engine, and with the help of some neighbors, they thrashed a little grain. Stanley Ellingson, who's now 90 years old, remembers those early days at Rollag.
Somebody told me about this and we drove up here, and pretty soon they found out I had a steam engine back home. You've got to bring that up here. So we did, and we hauled back and forth for a couple of 3 years. Finally, we left it here, still running too. My grandchildren are operating that thing.
But over the years, the reunion has grown and grown and grown, thanks in part to all of the thousands of volunteers.
We get people from all walks of life. It doesn't matter what you do for a living or what you don't do. At Rollag, everyone's treated the same, and I think a lot of that is because we are all volunteers. You know, there's nobody paid a nickel for anything they do, and I think that makes, I really think that's part of it too.
I wished I knew. Yes, I do. It may be good information to pass around. Yeah.
A cornerstone of the reunion is, of course, the giant steam-powered tractors. They move like great ancient dinosaurs, alive again, recapturing the spirit of the pioneers.
They are just a hunk of iron. My engine weighs 36,000 pounds and it just sits there and wants to sink into the ground. I put in a little water, I put in some wood, and 2 hours later it's a living sort of creature that moves on its own and is quite agile.
It was a new era for farmers at the turn of the century. The steam tractors moved into the fields, replacing plow horses.
These weren't around very long, but you can see that the glamour of these machines has kept them around much, much longer.
The real breakthrough for farmers came when steam technology was applied to threshing machines. Little did farmers know at the time, but they were part of the Industrial Revolution, which helped make this country prosper and grow. It also became the breadbasket of the world.
It probably was not unlike what the computer age has done to us. Imagine these guys now being able to thrash and actually at the end of the day have 5,000 or 6,000 bushels thrashed. It was really several orders of magnitude. So it just meant a great deal. It was a revolution.
But the age of steam on the farm did not last long. The great steam tractors quickly became outdated and were replaced by internal combustion tractors. They were easier to operate and didn't require the enormous amounts of coal and water. But these great machines of a bygone era will never be forgotten. Countless hours to make. They are the inspiration to many younger people.
The people that build them are very talented and really know what they're doing to create such masterpieces as they are. They were intriguing. When I was 8 years old, I came out here for the first time, and they were very interesting mechanically, and I'm into mechanics, so they let me inside the fence, and I haven't been able to leave since. They had to take in a lot of patience. I don't know if I would have enough patience to build one. I would love to someday be able to build one, but if and when I ever get the patience.
This is Charlie Olson's creation, a 1/3 scale 1915 K steam tractor. It weighs 1,400 pounds and runs on 125 pounds of steam. The boiler holds 7 gallons of water and it's fired on wood. Charlie says the joy this miniature tractor gives to others is the joy he receives.
They comment about how true it is to the big models. It's a replica, and a lot of them like that. A lot of older fellows come and they see it, they say, well, that's got everything that my engine had on it. And that's what I like about it, and that's what the people tell me.
And Charlie knows this tractor is built to last many years.
Do you think this engine will outlast you, Charlie?
Yep, I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Well.
Historians say the steam-powered engines began this country's Industrial Revolution. And although steam did not last long on the farm, it did make a long-lasting impact on industry. The Corliss engine is an example of that. For more than 5 decades, the Corliss was the prime source of electricity for the city of St. Paul. Its 380 horsepower engine moves the 19,000-pound flywheel 42 miles per hour. The generator itself weighs 16 tons. The intricate workmanship is held in high esteem.
There's a certain artistic value to these old machines, the workmanship that you don't see anymore. They're kind of a thing of beauty if you look at them and how they're all put together and how they were built, and it's really incredible if you think about it. This thing being built in 1904 and it still runs perfectly well today. I like mechanical things, and this thing just really kind of tugged at my heartstrings, if you will. If you know anything about machine work, it's real obvious that the guys that built this thing really took pride in their work, and you know, it's still running, as I said, so that's a testament to their work. But just the fit and finish of all the metal parts and the brass, and when we get it all shined up, it looks really nice, and it's I think it is a work of art.
Equally impressive is the mighty Pabst engine. This Alice Chalmers engine weighs 85 tons. It was installed in the Pabst brewery in 1906 and was one of 4 in the power room.
And this engine ran production for 62 years. And the fact that something like this was built nearly 100 years ago, built with this kind of precision, and then reassembled here by people who had never ever seen it, that draws me here to this engine.
When the Pabst engine was restored at Rollag, it took 7 semi-trucks to transport it here. It then took volunteers 8 years for reconstruction. The engine sits on 230 yards of concrete, weighing 920,000 pounds.
I think this engine drew me because of how simply it seems to run and how easy it seems to run. And the engine needed some friends. It needed someone to take care of it. I needed a place to work, so it worked out real well.
What also has worked out real well here at the reunion is the steam hammer and its production of souvenir plates. The steam hammer was made by Morgan Engineering of Alliance, Ohio. It has a patent date of 1876. It was used for many years in the Burlington Northern Car Shop in St. Paul, but it wasn't making souvenirs then.
It was used for forging hot iron parts, and we think everything at Rollag should be doing something, and we don't have the expertise for forging hot iron. We've been forging a commemorative souvenir plate. This is our 19th year.
Steam made its impact in many other areas, including entertainment. This antique wooden C.W. Parker merry-go-round is generated by a 10-horsepower steam engine and boiler. The Rollag merry-go-round is one of only 2 carousels to operate on steam in the United States.
And we're also very historically minded, so that we have the carousel is being restored to its original look as close as possible. Finding out what it really looked like at one time is a very difficult task, but now we have literature and we have books that we're working with. We have a committee that's very historically minded, very serious about restoring it to its original look.
The Rollag merry-go-round was donated by the late Reuben Klein of Pelican Rapids, Minnesota. It provided 60 years of faithful service touring carnivals and county fairs throughout the nation. It is one of the largest attractions on Steamer Hill.
I think it's a lot of nostalgia. Also, it's a type of ride that today is very valid for enjoyment. I think that if you go to the county fair, you'll find the merry-go-round as busy as ever. One of the oldest rides on the Midway, dating back to the 1700s. And it's a ride that I think that children of all ages can enjoy.
And the love of Rollag's merry-go-round was firmly established in 1984 when the band organ, which was built by Lance Johnson, was installed.
The installation of the band organ tripled the business on the merry-go-round because it calls attention to itself. And I think people are reminded that the old-fashioned merry-go-round music means fun time. Get in line and ride the merry-go-round.
And those at the reunion can also get on the train and ride it for free. The 353 is one of the few operating steam locomotives in the country. 650 people can board the train at a time. The 353 can make 4 full rounds per hour. It's a great way to move people around the grounds at Rollag, riding the 353 steam train. Up and running, it takes seemingly endless hours of work, especially on the railroad tracks. Hartley Ellingson says working side by side with other volunteers is what produces the real joy for him at Rollag.
They laugh at me at work when I say, well, not everybody's got a train to play with, and they say, well, who wants to play with a train? Well, it just depends on your what do you happen to like in life, and I happen to think this is enjoyable.
Steam not only powers the big trains, but the little ones as well. The Ortner Memorial Railroad gives thousands of free rides each Labor Day weekend. The train came from an amusement park in Niagara Falls, New York. Henry Ortner and Greg Beach of Moorhead bought the train in 1979. It was donated to the reunion 2 years later. In 1990, the Ortner steam locomotive received a complete overhaul. Now, engine number 49 is the delight of many, including one of its steam engineers, Mary Jo Dillon. Mary Jo says it's a challenge to regulate the 20-horse, two-cylinder engine and keep it at an even steam pressure. But she does it well. Just ask her 7-month-old daughter, Gretchen, who rides along with Mom, even during nap time.
Just to see the joy on people's face when they ride it. A lot of the older people just love the smell of the smoke when it comes out of the stack and just smelling the coal and riding on it. The kids love it. Kids will go round and round, many times, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to see the people, and it's just fun to run.
Women like Mary Jo are playing a bigger and more important role each year at the reunion in Rollag. Their involvement in the show began to blossom about 25 years ago, when a couple of gals decided they wanted to do more than just cook.
My mother-in-law and I started with making homemade lye soap out here, and then we found that there were other gals like us that weren't necessarily right here, but were coming in to visit, that didn't like sitting in their camper or sitting in the car reading. So said, well, what can we do? So we just started adding things, and there again you get the moms involved, you get the family involved, and it's a lot easier for Dad to go to a steam show.
One of the most enjoyable events at the reunion is the Style Show. It's a step back in time for those at the show, a real history lesson.
Try to show the people the different eras of the clothing, how it changes and then it comes back again, the types, teach them a little what the materials were, why the styles changed, because what happened to us as a country made a difference in the styles. And that's a big thing that a lot of people don't realize, like the bicycle, the wars and all that, it made a big difference in the ladies' clothing. It's wonderful. You come down here and you can go right back into wearing the old dresses, but you don't have the problems that go with wearing all these old dresses, like the old, we have bathrooms and we have all those kind of nice, unique things that you can use today, but years ago, no, they didn't have that. We don't have to live in the dirt and all that they did then. If the men want to come out here and see the engines, they got to drag the wife along. Well, she's got to have something to do, so we have her come too, Yeah, we try to do as much as we can to keep the women coming, the children coming, and like I said in the show today, when we have these young girls modeling, they start collecting, and that's great. You start a whole generation over again,
And a whole new generation is also experiencing a history lesson in the lumber industry. This sawmill came to Rollag during the 1986 show. It was rebuilt within 1 month. The sawmill was manufactured during the 1920s, but still runs like a clock. Sawyer Earl Herbranson enjoys the work, but doesn't lose sight of safety.
It can be dangerous. It can be a life-threatening situation if you make the wrong move at the wrong time. And I'm pretty strict on that. I watch everybody pretty close. These are volunteers. Quite a few of them have been helping me since we first set the mill up and when we had the old mill running here. So they pretty much know what they're doing. And I usually put beginners with somebody that's been here for a while that can instruct them better than I can from their vantage point.
And an even larger sawmill is located on the west side of the lake at Rollag. The Bryden Roan sawmill was donated to the reunion back in 1986. It took several years to reassemble it, piece by piece. Now it can saw 2,200 feet an hour. It saws mostly pallet lumber, which the show can then sell.
No, we try to do this like if it was for real. We got a few more people working in there than necessary. When Danny run the mill, he had 9 people, and
So we got a couple extra in there now. But it's supposed to be fun, not all work. But.
And what would a reunion at Rollag be without the gas engines? Here you will find the best collection of gas engines anywhere in the country. One of the highlights is, of course, the Auto Engine Collection, which is considered to be the finest collection of restored auto engines in the United States. Jerry Swedberg has been around gas engines ever since he was a boy growing up on the farm. These engines were made by the Fairbanks Morris Company, which is 101 years old. Many people believe Fairbanks Morris built the greatest quality of farm and industrial engines of any company worldwide. The large engines here were primarily used in grain elevators in North Dakota. They were to elevate the grain to the top of the elevator and later used to grind feed in elevators. The engines were an integral part of the agriculture industry from the 1890s to the 1940s, eventually replaced by electricity.
For us people, it's primarily the unique mechanism. There were over 1,200 different companies that built gas engines across the United States. Every company had a little different unique mechanism, something that was different, and what we look for are the unique things about engines. And some were, we'll call them common farm engines. They sold for as least amount as $40. And then they had mill engines, they call them. They used in grain elevators and factories in the east. They would get up into the thousands of dollars, but they were made to run continuously every day for weeks and weeks. It's a great hobby. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of fun. And people, I think most people, they enjoy coming to look at them, seeing what they do.
Tractors graced Rollag along with many more pieces of John Deere machinery. John Deere representatives were amazed at the response.
Just happier than heck with all the people and glad everybody comes out, even if the weather isn't quite so great. But we're happy that everybody's here.
One of the major attractions was this 1917 all-wheel drive John Deere. Only 100 were made. This four-cylinder tractor is one of two still in existence in the entire nation. Another gem on display was this 1878 Mansour wooden corn planter. It's a two-row horse-drawn corn planter owned by Jerry Nordick of Rothsay, Minnesota.
People have told me that it could be maybe one of the only original old Mansers around. You realize in 1880 Deere bought this company out and then named it the Deere Manser Company.
It took two people to run the planter, one to drive the horses and the other to operate the stick that moves the planting mechanism.
I think it's very important that we preserve history for our younger generation. You know, there's been people who have come through here today that don't even know what corn is. If you notice, I have corn in there. When I move the stick, corn drops out. So we have a real job as people get away from the general tie to the land to preserve history and let them know what it still took to make this country flow.
Louis Tabe knows what made this country go, especially when it comes to John Deere tractors. He made this 1925D 3/8 scale tractor. It took him 2,500 hours. He also has the largest collection of John Deere tractors and implements in the world.
Did you ever think your collection would grow to be this large?
Not really, didn't think so. But one led to another one, and so we just kept on trying to get one of each model, which we have succeeded pretty much.
He's a great man in more ways than just that, but appreciate him as being part of the family, and he's done a lot for John Deere. He's promoted John Deere a lot, of course, and always used John Deere equipment, always had the good equipment to operate on the farm, and appreciate his collection, what he's done, and we want to carry it on in the family for years to come. My son has some interest as well, and we want to carry it on for at least several generations.
And one of the great innovators of John Deere tractors was at this year's reunion. Don Duffner of Buxton, North Dakota, put together what he calls the 3Ds. Back in the late 1960s, Don needed a bigger tractor, but couldn't afford it. He eventually purchased 3 720Ds and somehow connected them.
I really had good luck with that. I had cheap power until gasoline went up to, it was 20 cents a gallon when I started out. That was only $3 an hour for fuel. They each burned 5 gallons a piece an hour, but then when it got to be up in the 60, 70 cents, I had to look at something else. So.
And for the few years Don farmed with the 3Ds, he got quite a reaction.
I really had a lot of fun with it in the field. This first spring, I'd see guys going down the road, and all of a sudden they'd be in reverse. They had to see it turn the corner. And when I plowed, everybody wanted to ride along and see how it worked on the 10-bottom plow, and I had to concentrate on running 3 tractors and 2 plows. If I didn't talk, I could make the corner all right, but
for Don and many other die-hard John Deere fans, this unique, rare, and huge collection of John Deere tractors at Rollag stirs the memories.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoy talking to people that like John Deere's the same as I do, and I got all these old John Deere's that I used to use and more or less had some of them sitting around, and this was a good time to dig them out, and it just made me laugh at some of the things I used to do. I got that old D with the Wisconsin engine on, and I hadn't used it for 20-some years, and when that thing started up, I started laughing and got tears in my eyes because it was so funny to see it go again, because I used to have so much fun with that at tractor pulls.
The reunion is careful to remember the days before gas or steam engines, when life was simpler but more challenging. Walking down memory lane includes the Pioneer Village, featuring the Rushfeldt Farm and log houses built by the pioneers from Norway. The Bjorndal family was instrumental in providing this attraction to the reunion in Rollag.
They took this whole thing and just made it happen, and it just quietly, without their group of people, and it's just a wonderful addition. But I mean, it just, that's how the volunteers work around here. If there's a project that they like, they jump into it, and it just, happens and turns in. It's a wonderful addition to the showgrounds.
You won't find any tractors at the reunion's farmstead. This is turn-of-the-century farming, all done with horses that are brought to the reunion by volunteers. You'll see it all here, from plowing and seeding this basic farming operation sheds new light on what life was like 100 years ago.
I see so many grandparents telling their grandchildren, now this is the way it was, you know, when they were kids, and it brings back a lot of memories. You see the tractor, they keep evolving, but tractors are tractors even if they're a newer version, but the horse just disappeared from the work scene, and so if we don't keep it going here, why the next generations will have no idea that it was ever done.
And for all 4 days of the reunion, every part of life that reflects our heritage is available at Rollag. There's plenty of activity on Main Street. It's the 3 R's the old-fashioned way at Rollag. Children once again enter a one-room schoolhouse and can sing with pride.
Stars in the sky, look down where he lay.
We want to remember those people who have died, who are members of this association.
On Sunday morning at the reunion, you can hardly find a place to sit during church services. The preaching is inspiring, the singing reaches the soul. Somewhere up there, God and all the past pioneers must be smiling.
When the saints of earth shall gather over on the other shore, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there.
And the music never seems to end at Rollag. From the Fiddler's Jamboree to polka to gospel, this reunion has it all.
Southern Spanish angels took another angel parade. All for Lady Jane, you turn the girls to do. Turn and chain the ladies right back on the bed. You join hands in circle, to the left around your nose. Allemande, caught a girl and weave around your nose. Little by little, he's changing me. Line upon line, he's changing me. Precept upon precept until I am free. Jesus is changing me.
It is a festive atmosphere at Rollag. Family being with family, friends being with friends, loved ones enjoying each other in an environment all its own. And every reunion at Rollag features food, food, and more food. The best food you could ever want. All prepared skillfully by volunteers from many local churches. The 1994 Western Minnesota Steam Threshers Reunion in Rollag, Minnesota. A cultural preservation of our heritage. A heritage built on the institutions that made this country great. God, family, neighbors, and hard work. It's a heritage Rollag will not forget. It's history on the hill.
Our whole family and especially I were just sold on Rollag. I don't think there's a finer group of people around, and I've said it before. I've said it. So I remember the feeling I used to get when I'd go to Bible camp. you know, and you only went there once a year, and you get kind of that charge up feeling knowing you were going to see. And it's that same kind of feeling that starts here about Tuesday, Wednesday. And it's because it's such a special relationship and a really true friendship with these people. You're sharing that same kind of bond again. I think that's what makes it all click.
It's a wonderful family hobby, I suppose, that you could say. It keeps the family together. I think we respect what our forefathers went through. It does unite us. I suppose it's a time for us to spend just together as a family, and yet this is a reunion, and we get together and we meet all of our old friends again who we haven't seen for a year, and then our kids are building more friendships, and they're seeing everybody, and that'll keep the show going.
I think it's really important to preserve all this old equipment. If we didn't preserve it, there wouldn't be any of it left. It tells a lot about our history, about how hard some of our forefathers worked just to make a living, and I think that's real important.
Well, I've been involved at Rollag since day one, since the show started, and I really enjoy it. I wouldn't miss it for anything, and I guess as long as I'm able to get around under my own power, I'll be here. Like I said before, it's the people that make the show.
I think one of the big reasons that people get drawn into the show here is the last word in the name, reunion. Once a year, we come together, we run these machines, and we see our friends. I think that's a big word and a big reason for a lot of people.
It's a disease. It's a bad disease you get. Some people have it worse than others, you know.
Is there a cure?
Well, usually when they plant you quit. But there's a few people that have even had an engine or a tractor for their tombstone.
Getting to meet people from all over the country and even other countries, and they're every walk of life, but we all have a common bond of preserving the past, you see, and that's what makes it real interesting.
I enjoy being up here. My whole family comes up here. My husband runs a steam engine, and my kids are up here, and they're getting into it, and it's a great family thing. The people up here are great. It's like we're all one big family, and it's wonderful. It's a lot of fun.
It's more than a hobby. It's kind of a passion. Rollag has some of the best people that you'll ever be acquainted with or associated with, and I'm just proud to be a part of it.